Welcome to the Layman Seminary. Today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working through or working on a paper that I'm writing for apologetics class that's due within 9 days on the 19th. Today's the 10th. Okay. So in the previous videos, I've done one on Greek concerning sanctification from Romans. I've done one on Hebrew concerning Genesis 15 for intermediate Hebrew, and now this one's on apologetics. And like I said, in those videos that will later on be cut up and put in a new format, those videos are ways to motivate myself to work on my paper, because I've learned that if I can talk to somebody about my paper, I can write a lot better, I can stay more focused. And so I'm talking to y'all to help me, but at the same time, hopefully it helps you to see maybe some of the things that I do may be able to help you in your paper writing. And honestly, if you get stuck writing on your own paper or whatever you're doing, I would encourage you to do the same thing. Make a video. You know, you don't have to post it to YouTube, but you might as well. I mean, so others can learn from it. There's several different videos you'll find on YouTube where people have gone and had procrastinated or whatever, and that's not my problem here. I'm not procrastinating, but where either people are got a heavy class load or case load, whatever you want to call it, and they're at the last minute and they have to write a whole lot of stuff, you know, and how they're able to do it. You know, you can find those all over the internet. I haven't looked for the Christian ones yet. Most of them have been secular versions of it. So never know, I may be able to improve in that or offer that real-time paper writing and all that in the future. We can do something like that. But right now, I'm kind of thinking about myself and getting through this class, okay? So forgive me for being selfish in that sense. All right, so here I am. Honestly, I have an idea about my topic, my thesis, but it's still real rough in my head. And so I'm just going to look and see what I have so far, and that'll help give me direction on where I need to go. The other thing is I've been working all week, and I haven't touched this paper probably since last Sunday, I think. And so I'm looking at this fresh. Now, I did do Grammarly and I did do the word rate thing recently, but as far as content and flow, I haven't touched it since then. So let's see what we come up with here. All right, let me pray first. Father God, I just pray right now for the people watching this video that you help them benefit, Lord. But right now, Lord, I just ask you help me benefit from this, Lord, that you help me to have insight on how to write my paper and help me to be motivated. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. So I'm talking about pre-evangelism, which is basic. Well, the paper should explain what I'm talking about, but let me just tell y'all. Pre-evangelism is a term basically for whenever we give enough apologetics to a person so that they can be saved. Now, there's a debate about whether apologetics saves or whatever and all that. I understand that. Also, apologetics is defending the faith. In other words, giving an answer for your Christianity, explaining Christianity, usually to an unbeliever or someone that's in opposition. It's possible. There's another word called polemics, which deals with intramural debates. In other words, debates within Christianity a lot of times and things like that. But for now, just this idea of what do we share with people before they get saved. You know, this deals with our presentation. Okay. Pre-evangelism is a term used to explain the belief that because people lack a biblical frame of reference in their worldview, they need to be exposed to a minimal amount of apologetics before understanding the gospel to believe it and be saved. Now, I'm evaluating this. I'm not just a strict proponent of this. My goal is to evaluate this. Okay. The illustration is cultivating the soil before sowing the seed. Today, this usually occurs in the context of conversational evangelism. In the book aptly titled after that activity, the reader is encouraged to memorize a 12-point apologetic outline to use in pre-evangelism. The reader is encouraged, okay, so here, this right here, we're going to fix later on. I'll probably combine these two sentences. The reader is encouraged to understand how the outline relates to the law of non-contradiction. Likewise, this paper will evaluate the use of the logical law of non-contradiction with the 12-point outline in Norman and David Geisler. Okay, so the people that I'm talking about, the resources that I'm primarily going to use are going to be from their writings, not exclusively from their writings. Other people's comments about it or the approach or whatever is going to be included. I'm limited. At first, it was the role of logic in pre-evangelism, but that was too broad. So I'm narrowing it to the law of non-contradiction. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that's still too broad. So I was like, well, I'm going to run this 12-point apologetic outline as it relates to that. And we'll see if that's narrow enough. And so that's where I'm at right now. Okay. Geisler believes there are foundational principles that serve as the basis for all thought. He believes the laws of logic are foundational principles. Okay. So I'm repeating myself here. And so I'll examine this later on and see which one I like and how I can fix this. But anyway, however, Geisler uses the law of non-contradiction principle of logic often in his argumentation. In the prolegomena of his systematic theology, he discusses 11 preconditions he says make evangelical systematic theology possible. Geisler chooses the word precondition rather than presupposition, even though he says these preconditions must be presupposed. By using the term precondition, he prevents his readers from thinking he's a presuppositionalist. Geisler considers himself a classical apologist, so he believes there are proofs for the existence of God. If not for that, he would probably be fine identifying as a rational presuppositionalist because of his emphasis of using the law of non-contradiction. A key to reading Geisler is to expect him to show that a statement is self-defeating or self-defeating, meaning he claims it violates the law of non-contradiction. He argues for the existence of God, and this God can do miracles. This is known by general and special revelation, but revelation is subject to the laws of logic, which is his fourth precondition. Okay, so I make a jump here because I was just trying to summarize the preconditions. So this makes me wonder if I need to, when I'm making these discussions about the preconditions, to include the logic involved there as well. I was trying not to do that because I figured I would do that underneath the apologetic outline, but it's got to be done somewhere, I think. So I'll come back to that. Geisler explains the logical basis of the 12-point outline in his book of Apologetics. Spell checking, formatting, and all that, I'm going to do at a later time. That's not my main goal. My main goal is for coherency, flow, so that I can start writing some more. This paper, I think, is 10-page limit. It's at 12 right now, but there's a lot of spaces and stuff. But anyway, but in a popular level, conversational evangelism, but in the popular level, conversational evangelism, and I know I introduced the book earlier. Maybe I just put an abbreviation there. Both Geisler's, the father and the son is what I mean by both Geislers, but I don't know if that flows right. Includes it with the acronym LISTEN to approach. With their acronym LISTEN as their approach, maybe. And the outline is introduced under the fourth step. Okay. The first step, all right, so here I am, I'm talking about the LISTEN acronym. All right. And it may just be simple for me to write the word for learn that's being used right here, because that's the first step. But we'll just see. The first step is to learn about the pre-understanding of the person they're talking to. This will reveal their gaps in logic by asking Socratic questions. Okay, now there's another word they're really questions that surface the real issue or the real need, but I just use Socratic questions. I'll probably end up changing that later on, but I just wanted that idea there. And even if you're not interested in apologetics, I think some of the methods in this outline can be used in teaching as well. So I like this LISTEN acronym, and we'll see if y'all do too. The gap in logic will involve violations of the law of non-contradiction. The goal is to, at some point, show how mutually exclusive ideas cannot be logically held. We seek to show, there's a we. I don't usually use first person plural when I'm writing, so I'll probably restructure that and take that out. We seek to show how their statements are self-defeating without trying to trap them in their words. There are 4 types of sour notes that the Christian listens to, and illogical beliefs, and one of them is what's supposed to be, and one of them is illogical beliefs within a single belief. And I'm definitely going to rework this, but because I'm not focusing on all the sour notes. I just want to focus on the one that's related to my thesis, which is illogical beliefs within a single belief. So that would be like illogical beliefs within Christianity, if a person actually held something within Christianity. But of course, this is where you're pointing out the logical beliefs within Islam or Buddhism or whatever you're dealing with. So the second step is to learn in their person in their person. I think the way that I said it was personally invest, and it changed it up. So let me turn that back. Personally invest in them by showing genuine interest in them. So now I got redundancy there. So I'm going to have to decide which one I like better and all that, but I could do that at a later date. And their journey. Actively listening to their journey will help. So again, got some redundancy here, will help one positively deconstruct their beliefs by using in a questioning approach and the boomerang principle. And I don't know if I'm going to include that in there, but I included it here because in the logical development of what it says underneath the outline, it mentions these things. It involves determining the real barriers to the gospel, and it's a strategy for building bridges to the gospel. It provides a basic knowledge of Christianity, emphasizing what makes Jesus unique. The third step, so here's the third step, is to search out gaps in their thinking. Again, the goal is not to interrogate them, but converse with them. This is not a classroom discussion, it's more of a coffee table one. And I may say more about this later on, but my goal was to get to the 4th step, because that's where the actual 12-point outline comes into play. Perhaps in my thesis, I could talk about how the 12-point outline is part of the acronym for LISTEN. I don't know. So here we go. First point. The 4th step is to throw light by using the 12-point apologetic outline. 1, a person that says they do not believe in truth needs to be convinced that absolute truth about reality is knowable. It says this, but it corresponds to reality. So this first point is asking whether reality exists. Next, they need to understand that as this conversation continues, they have been using logic to converse whether or not they knew it. Finally, they will probably understand the logic to mean you are having a reasonable and rational discussion. So if you explain, hey, let's do this in order, let's do this in a logical way, they're probably thinking that means you want to be reasonable and rational. Okay. So 2, a person who says they believe all views are true needs to be convinced that they're opposite to truth, and these opposites are false. This involves the first principles that are the foundation for logic, and without them, nothing could be known. One principle is non-contradiction. Many people claim that absolute truth is knowable, so they reject the view that something can be true for all people everywhere at any time. However, what they are actually saying is that it's absolutely true that no absolute truth exists. Applying a claim to itself shows the self-defeating nature because it violates the law of non-contradiction. Their claim about reality will expose unknowingly them unknowingly claiming that one can know external reality exists. These are the first principles of reality. This step also relates to Geisler's precondition of exclusivism. If it is true, then pluralism, relativism, and inclusivism cannot be true since they are mutually exclusive. This leads to the third step. So I may talk about those. I don't know. 3, a person that says they believe in truth but not in God needs to be convinced that a theistic God exists. According to Geisler, there are 7 worldviews: theism, no, I don't know what happened to the A, atheism, pantheism, panentheism, finite godism, polytheism, and deism. If theism is true, the other worldviews cannot be true because each is mutually exclusive except for panentheism and polytheism. This is where the 4 classic arguments for the existence of God come into play. And so this is where I kind of start talking about those. And right now I'm just trying to write something about them, but I may do a lot of cutting. But here's what we got so far. The cosmological argument argues that since everything with the beginning has a cause, God caused the universe to exist. People understand cause and effect relationships. Some will understand the philosophical and scientific basis for this claim. The best approach is to ask them to grant that God caused the universe to exist. In other words, sometimes I believe that rather than trying to convince them of every single point, there's nothing wrong with saying, grant me this, or let's allow this to see how the logic follows through. Because what that does is that allows a person to at least follow your train of thought without strongly objecting to it. I guess that's the way I'm saying it. The pre-evangelist can then continue his argument but promise to return to the point. For example, not everybody's going to be experts at philosophy and science, but yet every Christian has a responsibility to evangelize, which means that pre-evangelism is going to have its limits and it's going to show up in different ways. So what, and that's why some people debate whether, it's necessary, whether it's biblical or whatever. But anyway, another option is to argue a current necessary being is sustaining it, talking about creation, but that's not a good, let me just say creation, based on present contingent existence. A necessary being cannot cease to exist. They must grant that a necessary being necessarily exists. See, this is pretty rough, right? The teleological argument, so I went from the cosmological, now I'm at the teleological argument, essentially states that there's an intelligent designer because of the complexity found in the design of creation. And then I don't remember if this is part of this or is this something that I'm trying to break off. I don't remember, but I'll read it and we'll see. Since being exists and there are distinct beings in existence, there are 2 main classes of being. But before getting to those classes of being, non-being cannot cause a being to exist. Also, a contingent being cannot cause another contingent being to exist. A necessary being cannot cause another necessary being to exist. See, that's very compressed. It's very difficult to understand. So I need to try to be able to simplify this and explain it. Because contingent being exists, a necessary being must exist. This necessarily being is pure actuality. A contingent being is both actuality and potency. Actuality can cause actually similar to, but differs from potency. A necessary being is not finite, changing, temporal, multiple, divisible. A necessary being is actual, intelligent, personal, good, true, and beautiful. So this paragraph really needs a lot of work. Okay. So here is where I kind of went and I could make a video later on about the steps that I did to research to set this up. But for right now, I'm just going to keep going with what I got. This relates to God, alleged disproofs of God, objections to proof, theism, and evidence. If God exists and miracles are possible, this relates to miracles. Now, these are not sentences. These are like placeholders that whenever I did my research, I put a note, I summarized what that page and that footnote is talking about. So that when I go back in and I rewrite it and study it, I already have my footnote and I can just integrate this into the flow of things. Miracles, and so miracles can confirm a message from God. This refers to miracles, apologetic value of, arguments against. These are just letting me know the places that I would search for in the sources. Okay. So going on with the rest of the outline, there's the 12-point outline. Then I have some other stuff where I wrote on what does it mean to prove that God exists. More notes that I'm going to start integrating into the paper, because and this is something that I wrote. Actually, this is one of the first steps that I did was I just sat down and I free wrote. Before I ever had my thesis or anything like that, I just sat down and free wrote and developed some of that. But anyway, next video that I do, I'll have some of this integrated into what I've already showed y'all, and it will be a lot different. Well, anyway, so if this was a blessing to you, if you got an idea about, okay, how I can go through and force myself to read my paper, be more critical of my paper, try to catch what's not being coherent, what doesn't cohere, what doesn't gel together, what I need to work on, this is a good way to do it. So hit the bell if you want notifications. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a thumbs up and share this with others. But most of all, please keep this ministry in prayer. God bless.